August 2nd, 216 BCE near Cannae, southern Italy. Picture this. You're standing on a flat open plain with a river on your left and nothing but wheat fields stretching to the horizon on your right. Behind you, 86,000 Roman soldiers, the largest army Rome has ever put in one place. 8 legions, doubled beyond normal strength, backed by an equal number of allied troops. Across the field, barely 50,000 men. Fewer soldiers, fewer supplies, no reinforcements coming, no way home if this goes wrong. To Rome, this isn't a battle, it's an execution. 2 consuls stand at the head of the largest force the Republic has ever fielded, and the math is simple. More men win. It has always worked before. Leading the Roman army, Gaius Terentius Varro, a man who built his entire career on one promise, that Rome has been too afraid to fight, and today, fear ends. Facing him, Hannibal Barca, outnumbered nearly 2-1, far from home, commanding an army that has not seen Carthage in years and has no path back to it if this field goes wrong. By every rule of ancient warfare, this should be over before the sun is high in the sky. Now watch what happens. By evening, somewhere between 50,000 and 70,000, Roman soldiers will be dead, not captured, not wounded, dead, most of it in under 6 hours. It will remain, to this day, one of the single bloodiest days in the history of warfare. And the man who orchestrated it will do it without ever having the numbers to win in the first place. How did an army half the size destroy the largest force Rome ever assembled? In one afternoon, on open ground, with nowhere to hide. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how. To understand why 86,000 Romans ended up on this field, you need to go back 1 year, to a general Rome had already decided to be ashamed of. His name was Quintus Fabius Maximus. After Rome lost an entire army to Hannibal's ambush at Lake Trasimene, the Senate did something it almost never did. It handed one man total power and told him to stop the bleeding. Fabius refused to fight. He shadowed Hannibal's army through the hills for months, never engaging, letting the Carthaginians burn farmland while Roman strength quietly recovered. It worked. Hannibal's army, deep in Italy with no reinforcements from home, was running out of the one thing it couldn't replace. Rome hated it anyway. They called him Cunctator, the delayer. Crowds jeered him in the streets. Watching your own countryside burn from a hilltop was not what Roman courage was supposed to look like. So when Fabius's term ended, Rome elected 2 men who promised the opposite. Lucius Aemilius Paulus, cautious, experienced. He had faced Hannibal's cavalry before and knew exactly what it could do. And Gaius Terentius Varro, loud, popular, a man who had spent his entire campaign telling Rome that the aristocrats were cowards and that he would give the people the fight they deserved. Rome gave them both the largest army the Republic had ever raised, 86,000 men, and then, in a decision that would prove catastrophic, ordered the 2 consuls to alternate command of it day by day. On the day it was Varro's turn to lead, the 2 men argued inside the command tent. "The ground favors his cavalry," Paulus says, staring at the map. "Open plain, no cover, nowhere to break their charge. We wait." "We have 86,000 men," Varro answers. "We are not going to hide from 50,000. Fabius waited. Fabius kept this army alive. Fabius let Italy burn for 2 years while Rome called him a coward. I did not come here to wait." Paulus says nothing else. The argument is over. Tomorrow, the army crosses the river. Across the plain, Hannibal has already chosen this exact ground for a reason that has nothing to do with infantry. Open terrain is where cavalry decides a battle, and cavalry is the one place his smaller army actually outnumbers Rome. There is also the wind. Locals call it the Vulturnus, a hot, dry gust that sweeps the plain most summer afternoons, kicking up dust and driving it east. Hannibal deploys with his back to it. Every man on that field will be marching into the sun and choking on his own dust by midday, a Carthaginian officer says, watching the Roman camp across the water. "Then let them march," Hannibal answers. At dawn, the Roman army crosses the river and begins to form. And here is where Rome makes the decision that will define the entire day. Instead of standard formation, the legions are packed unusually deep, ranks compressed tighter than doctrine calls for. The logic is simple. More men, stacked deeper, should be able to punch through anything in front of them. Hannibal watches that formation take shape from across the field, and he builds his own line to meet it exactly. He places his weakest troops, Gallic and Iberian infantry, in the center and pushes them forward in a bulge, curved outward toward the Roman line like a drawn bow. His best infantry, hardened veterans who have marched with him since Spain, he holds back on the flanks, out of the first collision entirely. "Center's exposed," one of his officers says, looking at the formation. "If Rome pushes hard enough, it breaks." "It's supposed to break," Hannibal answers. "Just not yet, and not where they think." On the riverside flank, he stacks his heaviest cavalry, Iberian and Gallic horsemen, roughly 8,000 strong, directly across from Rome's weakest cavalry wing. On the far side, his Numidian riders take position. Fast, loose, built for chasing, not for holding ground. Two consuls stand across that field, commanding 86,000 men who genuinely believe, by simple arithmetic, that they cannot lose today. The horns sound, the lines move forward. It begins with the skirmishers, javelins and stones traded across the gap while the real lines close the distance behind them. Nobody remembers this part of the day. What happens next is the only part anyone remembers. On the riverside, Hannibal's heavy cavalry under Hasdrubal slams into the Roman horse. And it is over faster than either side expects. The ground here is narrow, squeezed between the river and the infantry lines, and there is no room for Roman riders to wheel, retreat, or reorganize. Men are pulled from their saddles. Horses go down in the press. Within the hour, the entire Roman cavalry wing on this side of the field has been destroyed. The left flank is gone, a rider shouts, breaking away from the chaos. "Then hold the center," comes the answer. "The center is what wins this." And for a while, it looks like it will. The compressed Roman legions grind forward into Hannibal's Gallic and Iberian center with the kind of relentless pressure that has broken every enemy line Rome has faced for a century. Shields slam together. The Carthaginian center begins to buckle. "They're breaking," a Roman officer shouts, driving his men forward. "Push! The center is breaking." From where Varro stands, this looks exactly like victory. His numbers are doing what numbers are supposed to do. It is the second worst mistake made on that field today, because Hannibal's center is not collapsing. It's folding. The same bulge that curved outward at the start of the battle now bending slowly backward, like a bow being drawn instead of released. His Gauls and Iberians give ground rank by rank in an organized retreat, while his best infantry holds firm on both flanks, barely touched by the fighting so far. The Roman legions keep pushing into that retreating center, because that is what an army does when it believes it is winning. Thousands of men funnel forward into the widening gap, packed shoulder to shoulder, deeper into ground that is now, without anyone realizing it, narrower than the crowd standing on it. "Something's wrong," a centurion mutters, glancing sideways. "We're not advancing anymore. We're just packed." "Keep pushing. We have them." On the far side of the field, the Numidian cavalry are still circling the Roman allied horsemen, refusing direct engagement, simply keeping that flank occupied and away from the center. It's not meant to look impressive. It's meant to buy time. Then Hannibal gives the signal. On both flanks, his veteran infantry, the troops he deliberately kept fresh and untouched all morning, pivot inward, 90 degrees, turning to face the packed Roman mass from the sides instead of the front. A Roman soldier in the middle of that crowd doesn't understand this as a maneuver. He understands it as spears suddenly arriving from a direction there was open air a moment ago. "Where did they come from?" someone screams. "We're being hit from the side." Then Hasdrubal's cavalry, having finished off the Roman horse on the riverside in under an hour, does the thing that separates a good cavalry commander from a decisive one. Instead of chasing the fleeing Roman riders off the field, he rides his entire wing around the back of the battle and slams into the Roman rear, the one side of the formation that has faced no enemy at all day. Front, both flanks, rear. 86,000 men are now enclosed on every side by an army half their size. Close the line, close the... The order dies somewhere in the noise. There is no line left to close. What follows is not a battle anymore. It's a collapse measured in silence and screaming, in sections too far apart to see each other. Packed as tightly as they now are, the men in the center of that Roman mass cannot lift a sword arm. They cannot see which direction the fighting is even coming from. Some are dying to Carthaginian blades. Others are simply being crushed to death by the weight of their own army, with nowhere left to fall. Paulus dies somewhere in that collapse, fighting on foot after his horse is killed beneath him. One of 80 Roman senators who die at Cannae that day, a number so exact it tells you something about how carefully Rome needed to count its dead afterward, as if the arithmetic itself was a form of grief. Varro escapes with a small group of cavalry. History has rarely forgiven him for it, though someone had to survive to carry the news back to Rome, and it may as well have been the man who could still ride. By the time the killing finally stops, the counting begins. Livy places Roman dead near 48,000. Polybius, writing closer to the events, suggests a number closer to 70,000. Either figure describes something that has never happened to a Roman army before: the destruction, in a single afternoon, of the largest force the Republic has ever raised. Hannibal's losses, somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000. Most of them Gauls, the same troops placed deliberately in the center of the bow, the ones who bent, the ones who paid the highest price for a maneuver that would be studied for the next 2,000 years. News reaches Rome before most of the survivors do, and what the city does next is, in its own way, as remarkable as anything that happened on the field. It does not surrender. The Senate bans public mourning. Women are forbidden from weeping in the streets because the sound of that much grief at once is judged a threat to order in a city that needs to raise another army immediately. They raise it. Slaves are purchased and armed for the first time in Roman history. Condemned men are enlisted. Within a year, Rome has legions in the field again. Hannibal waits outside the city for terms that never come. He is said to have told one of his officers that Rome knows how to lose a battle in a way no enemy he has ever fought does. He is right. Cannae does not break Rome. It reveals exactly how much breaking Rome can absorb, and that number turns out to be larger than Carthage's ability to keep winning. Hannibal will remain in Italy for 14 more years, undefeated in every major battle he fights there, and none of it will matter, because Rome does not need to beat Hannibal. It only needs to outlast him. And in a city willing to arm its own slaves rather than negotiate, that was never going to be a fair fight for very long. Fabius, the man Rome mocked as a coward, is quietly restored to influence within the year. Rome had just learned, at the cost of 70,000 of its own men, the lesson he had been offering them for free. The war is not over. Hannibal is still in Italy. Carthage still believes it can win. And in Rome, a young officer who survived Cannae, barely 19 years old, having watched his own father narrowly escape the collapse, is about to spend the next 14 years turning that day into the blueprint for how Rome finally ends this war. His name is Scipio, and the battle he builds to destroy Hannibal will use the exact same trap Hannibal used here, turned back on him. Watch the Battle of Zama now.